Hello, it's Geraldine Wilkins again, and we are on the third design of the Essential Ruler Quilting Challenge Circle Ruler Designs. Did you have fun with the first couple of designs? I know the flower leafy design is a little challenging, and so you might have some homework. All you have to do is practice. The next design is stacked circles with free motion quilting. And I've given you a few options, but guess what? You don't have to stitch the free motion quilting if you don't want to, but I recommend it. And you don't have to use the designs that I am sharing with you. Again, you can use what you know and like. I want the designs to become your own by making them a little personal. But nevertheless, I'm going to show you how to stitch the circle designs where you stack one circle one on top of the other without breaking thread. And then I'm going to show you how to fill it with free motion quilting. Let's take a look at some of the designs. All right, here we go. I think they are fantastic and fun designs. I really enjoy stitching them. And you might notice that there's some similarities. Like this is a square spiral and this is a circular spiral. Then we have some zigzag with points. Zigzag or curves instead of points. How do we stitch? Let's look at the ruler. Again, we're using the 2-inch ruler size for all our designs. When we stitch a circle, one on top of the other, it's very easy to do. There's multiple ways actually to do it. Now, there's a unique way to do it when we are stitching with free motion quilting in the center. If you want to stitch without free motion quilting, remember the first design we did with half circles? You're essentially going to stitch half circles. You're still going to mark on your quilt sandwich a reference line all the way down. And you're going to use the reference lines on your ruler to help keep your stacked circles all on top of each other very evenly. So you're going to do exactly the same thing. You're going to start with your needle here, and you're going to stitch half a circle. Slide the ruler down, always making sure that the foot is in line with this reference line, and this reference line on the ruler is lining up with the reference line you marked on your sandwich. Then you're going to stitch the opposite side. You're always going to stitch the opposite half. When you get to the bottom, you go all the way around to close the circle. Then you move the ruler up, and whatever half is missing, that's the side that you're going to stitch. You're going to slide it up, go the opposite direction, whatever is missing. So basically what you're doing is that you're stitching in a serpentine order. One half of the circle, then you come all the way around and go on the other side. The reason why we do that, one, we're not backtracking over previous stitching, so you only have one layer of thread. And second, this intersection, when you cross, you won't have a break in the circle. Because another way you can stitch this, but you can have a potential break in the circle, is if you stitch half on one side and only stay on one side. If you do that, when you come back around and you will try to match and make it closed, a closed circle, and that could be challenging. When you serpentine stitch, you will cross over. You won't have to bring two parts together. Instead, you cross over and then you don't have to worry. So that's how you would stitch the circles, one after another, without double stitching or backtracking over previous stitching, and without the chance of having the circle broken or open. Now, when we want to add free motion quilting, how do we add free motion quilting without double stitching? If you look close at this, there's no double stitching here. And how we do it is very easy. At least once I tell you, you're going to say, that's all I have to do. Wow, thank you for sharing that tip. I'm happy to share tips with you. So here is what we do. We start at the top. Again, we want to have a reference line on our fabric. We want to use the reference line on our ruler in conjunction with the reference line on the fabric so that the stacked circles are even, one on top of the other. We start by putting our ruler foot here, needle down, and we stitch a complete circle. Go all the way around and then come back to the top and stop. Now we stitch the free motion quilting. We come down a few stitches and then whatever design we want to stitch. In this case, it's a zigzag design. We want to make sure we come back to the bottom and then a straight line right here on the reference line. We want to stop on the edge of the circle. That's the first one complete. Now we shift the ruler down. We stitch the whole circle. Then we work our way down, whatever design we want. In this case, it's a zigzag. And then we stop on the edge of the circle, and the circle with free motion quilting is complete, the second circle. Then we shift the ruler down and we do exactly the same thing. A complete circle first, coming back to the top, stitch our free motion quilting, and then work our way to the bottom, landing on the reference line on our quilt sandwich. That's how we stitch it continuously. Now, what design do we put on the inside? Let's go over the designs that I want to share with you. I'm going to bring out my whiteboard. Bring that out. Here we go. And I recommend that you practice this ahead of time. And you can practice the ruler quilting part. Remember, if you are going to stitch with free motion quilting, you stitch the complete circle. So you're going to go all the way around. Let me make a reference line. Our ruler foot is here, and we're going to stitch all the way around, and we're going to stop here. Start and stop. Well, both of those have ST, right? Start and stop. Then we're going to stitch our free motion quilting, making sure we end up right here on the reference line, so that we can then do another circle with our ruler and then do our free motion quilting and stop. That's how we fill in the free motion quilting. Now, if we only want to do circles with no free motion quilting, remember we have our reference line. And we want to do this when we stitch the circles, just like when we did the half circles in the earlier part of this section of the challenge. Then when we are finished and are at the bottom of our stacked, we want to close the circles by going in the opposite direction. When we do that, we will not leave a gap because we're crossing over. The other option, and you can try it if you like, is to stitch half a circle, half a circle, half a circle. When we get to the bottom, then we have to close this gap. That means the ruler position has to be exact to make sure we close the other half. Another way to do it, let me try it on this side, to stitch one circle on top of another, is to do a complete circle and stitch on top of the previous one on this side. Then do a complete circle, and to get to the bottom, we have to stitch on previous stitching on this side, and then repeat that. You want to alternate sides because you don't want heavy double stitching all on one side. This is my favorite way to make stacked circles when I don't have free motion quilting. When I have free motion quilting, as you know, the free motion quilting allows me to get to the next position for the next circle. So just to repeat, my foot is here. I'm going to start here, do a complete circle, and do my free motion quilting, making sure I stop right here on the reference line. Slide my ruler down, make a complete circle, and do my free motion quilting, making sure I come down to the bottom. Now, regards to the free motion quilting, I've given you 4 different designs. One is a curvy zigzag. One is a straight zigzag with points. And then 2 spirals. When you start the spirals, you always want to come off the edge of the circle with a short line. Then you want to start your spiral. Go in and always leave room to come out. And when you come out to get to the next circle, again, you want to end with a short line. Not a very good spiral, but that's why we practice, right? The next one is a square spiral, but it's the same principle. We come down a little bit off the circle, and now we start the square, always leaving room to come out. And then we end with a short line. Now let me show you how that looks inside of a circle. So we have our reference line, and we're going to line up our ruler foot right on the reference line, and our ruler is on top of the reference line. I'm ready to stitch my first circle, and I stitch a complete circle. This is stacked circles with free motion. I'm going to come down 1 or 2 stitches, maybe 3, it doesn't matter, as long as you come off the circle. Now you start your design. I'm going to start with a spiral, making sure I give myself some room to go in and come back out. And I always want to end on the edge of the circle, right on the reference line. Now I'm ready to stitch my next circle. And again, another spiral. Stopping on the reference line. Coming down a little bit and then starting the spiral again. Making sure I give myself room to come out. It takes some practice, spirals do, right? The main thing is you want to start here with your free motion quilting and end here. So I can come in and meander, and then I am done. I want to start the next circle with free motion quilting. Now, what design do I want it to be? I can make it into any shape I want. I can do this. The main thing is I want to end back on this reference line so I can start the next circle. All right, let's take a look at me stitching this out. You see me stitching this out already in progress. I'm doing exactly what I said. I'm stitching the full circle, then doing some free motion quilting, working my way to the bottom. Once I get to the bottom, I can shift the ruler down and start the next circle, then start stitching the free motion quilting in the center. In this one, I'm doing a zigzag design. You keep going until you fill the space. Now, when you're filling the space, say on a quilt project, and you want to do rows or columns of stacked circles with free motion quilting, you can have them start exactly at the same level so that they're one right after the other, like you see here. Or you can shift it so that they are not starting at the same height. One is a little bit lower to give it another look, which you'll see in the next design. I love having variations in design. This is the final design for the zigzag. Fun and easy. I like this free motion quilting design. And remember, this is a 2-inch circle, but you can do this with any size circle. So here's the spirals. I love the spirals as well. And you can travel across a quilt with large circles and fill them with free motion quilting continuously without breaking thread. So instead of a straight reference line on your quilt, what if we did a curvy line? The same principles apply. You want to start on the reference line, make your full circle, do your free motion quilting, and then end on the edge of the circle where it intersects with the reference line. I think hopefully an example, a visual example works best. Let's try that. Instead of a straight line, I'm going to use a gentle curved line. So here are my circles. I'm going to put the circles, right? Here are my circles that I will stitch with the ruler, and I'm not doing this in order. I'm just doing it to show you that the circles don't have to be in a vertical or horizontal format. They can be in a curvy format, but you would still use the same process where you would start on the reference line right here. You would do the complete circle. Looks like my whiteboard. Okay, there we go. Once we come back from the complete circle, we do our free motion design and always end on the reference line. Then I would do the complete circle, do my free motion quilting, making sure I end up on the reference line. Start the next circle, do my free motion quilting, stop on the reference line. Then do another circle, then do the free motion quilting, stop on the reference line, free motion quilting. We have already done the circle. Does that make sense? I think it's a fun way to stitch circles. And because we can do this with any size circle, you can do a beautiful design and vary different circle sizes in one quilt. It doesn't have to be all 3-inch circles or 8-inch circles or 6-inch circles. So there's the first layer of spirals of stacked circles. And you can make them neat and uniform. You can change and vary the size, use 2 different size circles. It's up to you. Have fun with this technique. I love quilting circles, and I love giving you options on what you can do with circles and free motion quilting. Let's look at my samples to show some slight variations that give a distinct look. They're slight variations, but they do change the way it looks in the end. Let's take a look. The zigzag, you can make them as loose or as tight as you want. But notice the transition from one to the next. Notice how it's pointed on this end, it comes down, and then I go to the right. I end this point on the left-hand side. When I come down, I go to the right. It gives it a different look than, say, if they both end up in the same direction, which you can see right here. Both of these, when I go from one circle to the next, they're both going to the right. Do you see that? Look at the difference between this one where they're alternating. Point is on the left, the point is on the right. On this one, they're both on the right. So you want to consider that. Then if you like this, you may want from one to the next circle to go in opposite directions. So both of these are pointing to the right, but both of these are pointing to the left. Maybe you don't want that. Maybe you want them all to go in opposite directions. So just something to consider. And these are all lining up like good little soldiers. Okay, so that's one option. Let's look at how the spirals have a similar look depending upon where we end and start the spiral. So the spiral comes down on the right. When I start the next one, it starts on the left. Ends on the right, starts on the left. Okay? Look at this one. It starts on the right and ends on the left. These two are different in terms of which direction I started stitching. Started down here and I started the spiral on the right. This one, I started the spiral on the left. You decide which is more appealing to you. Practice both or vary them all so that you don't have to worry about them being uniform. You do want to pay attention to how they look when they go from one circle to the next. This is ending on the left, starting on the right. Do you want them to start on the same side? That's up to you. So that's something else to consider. Now look at this. This is square spirals. And again, we have ending on the right, starting on the left. It does give it a different look. This one is starting on the left. This one is starting on the right at the top of the circle. Did you also notice? Look at these two. These are all lined up horizontally and vertically, where I staggered each column. So this one started up higher, these started lower. This has a little bit more interest, I think, because of that, but it depends on the application, why you might want them to line up horizontally and vertically, or why you might want to stagger and have them alternate in terms of where the circle resides. And it's very easy to do that. This right here, where it starts, is halfway. So if I start stitching this side and I want to stitch the next one higher, all I have to do is take the reference line that bisects the circle and put it at the top of this one. That lets me know that this now is starting a half of a circle higher. So that this circle, the halfway mark, is always going to be in the middle, and the same with this. Halfway mark in the middle. So you can stagger them. And that's what was done here as well. Stitching free motion quilting in the center of stacked circles can be so much fun. Let's look at the square spiral and watch how I stitch that out. It's still the same principle. You can stitch any free motion quilting design that you want in the center. Let's take a look as I stitch it out on the BERNINA Q20 sit down long arm. So here I am stitching out. Remember, we are stitching a complete circle, stopping on the reference line at the top, and then working our free motion quilting design in the center of the circle. With spirals, you know that you always have to give yourself some room to get in and out of the spiral. With any free motion quilting design, you want to start at the top of the circle and end at the bottom of the circle on the reference line so that you can stitch the next circle. There's the spiral and the square. I love spirals And a square spiral is just as beautiful as a round spiral, at least to me. Continue to practice this design. And in the example I shared earlier, remember we are learning on a vertical reference line, but you can make that reference line into a curvy line. It doesn't have to be a straight line, and run that across your quilt in a beautiful pattern. The same principles apply. Just know that if your curvy line has deep curves, those larger circles won't work. You want to have a gentle curve when you're using larger circles. Be creative and practice first. Always practice with paper and pen or a whiteboard like I've demonstrated today, and then practice on a fat quarter. Those fat quarters can become your reference for future projects, or you can make them into a fun small project like a zipper tote bag or a sewing machine cover. That's certainly up to you. Now, I love being able to stitch this type of design on a sit-down machine. Why? Because it allows the fabric to run in front of me or onto my lap and not into the machine if I'm stitching on a home machine. That's why I love to create designs that work well and are compatible with home machines as well as with long arms. Again, I did set my stitches per inch to 12 so that I would have nice, smooth stitching. It wouldn't have a uneven or strange looking circle. We want a nice, smooth, circular pattern. So this is the last design of the 4 designs that I've shared with you, free motion quilting designs that you can put on the inside of stacked circles. This is a wavy zigzag. It's a fun design. It's easy to stitch, especially if you're new to free motion quilting. And I love, again, I can't say this enough, that we don't have to break thread to do it. And we don't have to double stitch. It's all one layer of stitching, no backtracking, no stitching on previous stitches. Isn't that beautiful? I just love it. Congratulations, you finished week 2 of the Essential Ruler Quilting Challenge. We've looked at several designs. We looked at half circle designs, stacked circle designs, and we took a circle and made a beautiful floral design. Each one gave us different skills and techniques to learn and to improve on. Perhaps you've done some of these techniques and have not had time to practice. So I hope this has helped you learn and practice your ruler quilting techniques and skills. And you've had some fun, at least I hope so. Now, for some more inspiration, I want to recommend that you take these smaller practice pieces as a way to move up to a larger piece. And I did that with half a fat quarter. Let's take a look. The reason I recommend that is because once we learn how to stitch the design, we want to see it play out visually in a larger space. It can look a little bit different, and you want to see how that looks. So half a fat quarter or a whole fat quarter is a way to practice the design as well as see how it looks in a larger space. Another thing that it will help you do is see how the texture looks across the quilt. Perhaps the 2-inch size circle is a nice size for smaller projects, but for a larger quilt, you might want to do a 3-inch circle. How will that look on a quilt? This floral flower design with 3-inch circles. It might be fantastic, and this is so doable on a home machine because we're doing it one row at a time. I love designs that allow me to stitch on my home machine or on a sit-down long arm or frame without it being too much of a challenge. Now, what's the last design that we looked at? And that was the stacked free motion quilted circles. I showed you how to stitch stack circles and then how to add free motion quilting. It's a fun way to hone your free motion quilting skills and ruler quilting skills at the same time. Again, I recommend stitching on a larger piece so that you can see how the design plays out on a larger surface. What does it look like? What is the texture? What size circles do you prefer? Do you want to mix and match circle sizes? So many ways to use these designs. I'm so glad that you have finished week 2. Get ready for week 3. We're going to stitch some more curves.